It started with the biggest pipe bomb the FBI had ever seen.
There is a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes.
It ended in a dumpster after the largest manhunt in American history.
My knees knocked so hard that I was about to answer them. That's how nervous I was.
Eric Rudolph and the rise of anger.
Domestic terrorism has been metastasizing across the country for a long time now.
True story, true crime, true consequences for us all.
American Shrapnel, from award-winning journalists Becca Andrews and John Archibald, two-time winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Now available wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, you ready for this?
Eeny Meeny, a Hulu original, streaming August 22nd.
Eeny Meeny. This casino job in just a few days. $3 million.
You get right to it.
From the guys who wrote Deadpool.
Your boy's a liability.
X.
Is he though?
Let's get this money.
Can we think this through for a second?
Yeah, because that's your strong suit, thinking things through.
Eeny Meeny, a Hulu original, rated R, streaming August 22nd. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and that's Stefan Krajisnik, and that is Andrew Gillis. And Ohio State has a starting quarterback, and Gus Johnson is going to spend the next 12 Saturdays going the Alabama transfer, Julian Sayin. What do we think about that? The Alabama transfer, Julian Sayin. Is that like a real thing?
I don't think he's going to do that.
He did it.
Caleb Downs, but Caleb Downs played a snap at Alabama. Caleb Downs was on the field for important games for Alabama. Julian Sayin, I think, went to classes for like syllabus day and then was at it.
Would you say that, before we get back into Julian Sayin, because that's actually why I feel like the Alabama Caleb Downs thing is like a footnote at this point. And it's not just because he's going to play multiple years at Ohio State. I think he's way more embedded in Ohio State's program than he ever was at Alabama. And it's because he was a true freshman. Like, Nick Saban, I think he joked, we were having a conversation one time about how, and I think you guys were there for the conversation, talking about how like, his relationship with Nick Saban was fine, but he was a true freshman, so it wasn't like the strongest relationship in the world.
Yeah. He did win SEC Freshman of the Year, though.
That's true. He did win the SEC. You know who didn't win a Freshman of the Year award? Jeremiah Smith didn't win a Freshman of the Year award. Speaking of freshmen, though, this one's a redshirt freshman. Julian Sayin, Ohio State starting quarterback, 2025. No shocker. I mean, we have been saying it for 9 months now, and we've been almost arrogantly saying, like, listen, this is not a real battle. I do think, to start with Lincoln Kienholz, though, Stefan, I do think Lincoln Kienholz, he accomplished his mission, even if he's not the starting quarterback at Ohio State, simply because Ohio State right now is in a position where if something happened to Julian and Lincoln had to come in for a drive, it wouldn't just be holding its breath because their entire season just fell apart.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was about exactly what you needed from Lincoln Kienholz in this quarterback competition, because I'll even one-up you. You said we've been saying Julian's the starting quarterback for about 9 months. I mean, 12 months ago, we were probably predicting Julian Sayin to be this team's starting quarterback in 2025. You know, that's just kind of been the trajectory of things for Julian Sayin. And I think what's maybe most important, and you know, we're recording this a few hours after listening to Ryan Day do his press conference. We've been saying Julian will be this team's starting quarterback, you know, for about a year now because of the talent and the kind of projections and everything that we thought Julian Sayin can be because of the talent. It seemed like last week Julian didn't win this quarterback competition because he's just always been the better one, and we'll just give it to him because Lincoln's not good enough. It seemed like last week was finally Julian's stamp on why he should be this team's starting quarterback. They talked about consistency and things of that nature. There's various reports out there that Julian had a really good scrimmage on Saturday. So, and there was also some reports that Lincoln had a pretty good scrimmage too, but Julian was the better of the two. Like, this is what you wanted. You wanted Julian to be this team's starting quarterback, but not because he was just the former 5-star who was the better option between the two, because I think that's kind of what you had between Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. you wanted two guys genuinely pushing for it, but the guy that won it is the guy that showed you he is ready to be starting quarterback at Ohio State, a team that's coming off a national championship, a program that's, been the face of consistency for the better part of like half a century. Like this is what you wanted, and it played out that way. And I think now the conversation can go from what does Julian Sayin need to do to like solidify himself as this team's starting quarterback, to how good can Julian Sayin be, and is he the guy to lead Ohio State to the national championship? Because Lincoln pushed him. Lincoln did everything you wanted Lincoln to do, and I think all three of us feel a lot better about Ohio State's quarterback room today than we did in February, where we were looking at this saying, hey, is the backup going to be a true freshman in Tavian St. Clair? Like, I think we feel pretty good about this room, while also simultaneously telling ourselves it looks like Julian Sayin went and took this job. It would not let Lincoln Kienholz take it away from him. And that is very promising, considering what we know already about the arm talent and all the other traits that come with being a great quarterback.
So what's next, Andrew? Because Julian Sayin doesn't get to play Akron week 1. He doesn't get to play Florida Atlantic week 1. Those are who Justin Fields and Will Howard played their week 1, respectively. He doesn't even get to play the night game on the road on a Thursday night against Minnesota, or the afternoon game on the road against Indiana. He gets to start off his career as Ohio State's starting quarterback against the number 1 team, who is also breaking in a 5-star quarterback. I wrote this story a few years ago, back when Arch Manning committed to Ohio State. Committed to Texas. And the premise of the story is Arch Manning's at Texas. Quinn Ewers is also at Texas. So he's going to spend 2 years sitting behind Quinn Ewers and then make his debut as a college quarterback, starting quarterback, when he comes to Columbus on August 3rd, 2025. And on the other sideline is going to be the number 1 quarterback in the class after him, the 2024 class, also making his debut as a starting quarterback. That premise ended up being true. The only problem is Ohio State, I used to be the number 1 quarterback in the 2024 recruiting class, was supposed to be Dylan Raiola, and the guy he was supposed to be sitting behind last year was Kyle McCord. Everything else, though, is the exact same as the scenario I played out in my head. We're going to get more into Arch and Julian in that matchup, especially next week as we get closer to the game week. But Andrew, what's next for Julian? What's realistic expectations for what we should see from him against Texas? But then also, what are realistic expectations for where we think he might be by the time they play Penn State and on down the list?
Well, I think the number one thing is that realistic expectations for Julian need to be tempered to some degree. Now, if you're saying, okay, he's a second-year player, he's going to be making his first start, he's going to be playing the number 1 team in the country, I understand if there are some mistakes there. You're right. You, dear Buckeye Talk listener, if that's your opinion, I think you're right. I think if you are expecting Julian Sayin to come out there and throw for 340 and 4 touchdowns and have an 82% completion percentage, maybe pump the brakes a little bit, maybe calm down a little bit, at least at first. So I think there was a reason why, Ryan Day and Brian Hartline mentioned, taking care of the football. I said this in one of our videos that we recorded right afterwards on the field. Like, I think that was definitely by design, and I think that was definitely something that they're looking for with Julian. You don't want him running out there throwing it all over the yard and making kind of dicey throws where it can really hurt you in a game of that magnitude against Texas, right? I think you want to see him do the simple stuff. You want to see him have the mastery of the offense. You want to see him make his progressions, and hey, if you have to check it down a couple times, that's fine. That's why you went out to the transfer portal and made it a priority to go get Max Clare. That's why you have a war machine of receivers, right? You have a war chest of receivers that are just remarkably talented players where, all right, cool, they're double teaming Jeremiah, but Brandon Innes is one-on-one on a drag route against the linebacker. Find him, hit him. Like, do the simple things right, do the little things right. That, to me, has to be the mastery of Julian Sayin early. That has to be the priority early. I mean, like, do you guys remember the Akron game last year with Will Howard, where, like, Will Howard played a pretty decent game against Akron, and then there was that play, I think it was against Akron, where he was running around in the backfield, and he was, like, going down, and he, like, threw it backwards to a running back, and, the play lost, 10 yards because they had to dive on it because it was a fumble. Don't do that. Right? Do the simple stuff, do the little stuff. Steven, I think you said, let your playmakers make plays for you. That needs to be the expectation for him week 1, because he's going to be able to make some throws where you go, whoa. And if you can avoid those kind of disaster, you know what, that's his first start. He hadn't seen that look before. He hadn't done that before. If you can avoid those type of mistakes, avoid those type of decisions, I think you're really going to like what you see early on, because the ceiling is certainly there.
13 of 22, 294 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. And then 3 rushing attempts for 13 yards. Is that a good day? Is that a good expectation in terms of floor for Julian Sayin?
Say that one more time. 13 of
22. That's 59% completion percentage. For 294 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception, plus 3 carries for 13 yards. If he has that type of day against Texas, what is your evaluation of his first game as Ohio State's starting quarterback?
13 of 22 and for 290 would be, okay, he wasn't afraid to air it out.
Okay.
13 completions and that amount of yards. That means you're kind of chucking the pigskin a little bit. So that would be my first kind of takeaway. I'm sure you're going to say, hey, that was Justin Fields' first start, or hey, that was CJ Stroud's first start, or hey, I'm sure that's where you're going with this.
Sure.
So, I think you probably look at that and say, you can probably live with that pick as long as it's not, fourth quarter, 24-24, you're at your own 25-yard line and he throws a pick with 2 minutes left. You probably live with that. But that would be kind of my first impression of like, you know what? 94 yards passing, almost 300 total yards. You turn it over once, you throw for a touchdown. I think you're okay. Because at that point, it would probably indicate to me Ohio State has a pretty decent running game.
Stefan, what's your evaluation?
That would be outstanding. That would tell me that he took some shots and Ohio State trusted him to take some shots and trust these receivers that they have. So plus I think Ohio State's gonna have a pretty good rushing attack. So if he's getting 290 plus yards and 4 touchdowns, sure, the completion percentage isn't great, but I'm counting on the running backs to give you a little something there. I'll take it.
So you wouldn't leave that game going, I don't know about this guy. Maybe we need to see the guy behind him.
No, I would not.
You wouldn't.
I'm holding. If I do say that, call me out, Buckeye Talk listeners.
Well, go ahead.
Would you think that someone would be an idiot to say, I don't know about that guy? We need to see the guy behind him.
I really hope you're the one who said that now.
It's a yes or no question. I didn't ask you to.
Sure, I would question the idiocy of that person.
Andrew, would you question how smart this guy is in talking football if he said, I don't know about that guy. We might need to see the next guy.
I mean, did they win the game, though? Because that's the only stat I care about, Steven.
That's not the question. The question is, would you need to see...
I mean, it depends, but...
It's a yes or no. You're making this more complicated.
It would be no, but it depends.
Okay. What? Okay. Well, that was CJ Stroud against Minnesota, by the way.
Okay. That's what I thought. I thought it was going to be him or Fields.
Yeah. No. Fields got to play Florida Atlantic week 1. He got to run 50 yards down the field and have Gus Johnson praise his name. I wrote this after that game. CJ Stroud's debut serves as a reminder that development is a process. I don't know if, in hindsight, that was probably the right way to look at that, but it was focused on moments. That interception was a bad interception. It was a bad read and a bad throw. He also had a couple of misses. It wasn't necessarily that he was airing it out, Andrew. It's just Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are better than everybody else. So they were legitimately turning 15-yard catches into 60-yard touchdowns. It was just, they're better than everybody else. Oh, wait, that's what they have in 2025. AJ Carnell and Brandon and Max Clare are just better than everybody else. And so that's how you get only 13 completions for 294 yards. The reason I started there is CJ then had to level up very quickly in a home game at noon with Gus and Joel on the call against an Oregon team who Arch is better than Anthony Brown, who was Oregon's quarterback that day. I think Steve Sarkisian's a better play caller than Moorhead is. But also Matt Patricia's not Kerry Combs at the helm of calling your defense, so that's going to be a little bit differently here. CJ Stroud was 35 of 54 for 484 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a bad interception at the end of that game. And I asked Ryan Day about that in the concept of the patience people are going to need to have. And Day's exact response to that, because I wrote it down, was I saw he threw for about 400 yards. I'm like, oh, we've got a special one, and they were ready to run him out of town. And that's, I think, the reason why I'm prefacing it that way of like, hey, would you look at these numbers and think that, hey, I'm not sure about this guy? And I am wondering if maybe I'm speaking more to our listeners and the fans more than I am to YouTube, because you guys are coming into this green-eyed and didn't cover that season. But you guys are like 484 yards. Yeah, that guy's going to be an NFL player one day. And that's not the way things were talked about. The last guy who was in Julian Sayin's shoes as a second-year quarterback and Ohio State starting quarterback playing in an early season big game. So that's why I'm asking again, what do you want to see from Julian Sayin that if you already think the sky is the limit for him, win or lose, what do you need to see from him against Texas that makes you feel 100% confident that even if this is not perfect, because it will not be perfect for either side. I don't think Arch and Julian are going to come in here and someone's going to win a game 45-42. So what would tell you, Ryan Day told us why he picked him, what would tell you that your feelings about where Julian Sayin's ceilings are, it's still headed in that trajectory, even if it's not anywhere near there right now?
I think for me, is Julian playing with a level of confidence and trust in himself that is evident to us, whether that's taking chances, whether it's throwing balls into tight windows, whether it's taking, deep shots to some of these receivers, whatever it may look like. Because I think maybe the part that I loved hearing from Ryan Day the most in terms of how he talked about quarterbacks today was we've seen guys like, he mentioned Michael Penix and Bo Nix and Will Howard, and these guys who have been around college football so long and been so good at the collegiate level. And Bo Nix, year one in the NFL, was outstanding. Michael Penix, he's going to get a shot now to be a starter. Guys and even Jaden Daniels, he had a lot of experience at the collegiate level for a guy with that talent. Like, he started at Arizona State. His first year at LSU was not outstanding. Like, Jaden Daniels played a lot of college football too before he got to Washington. Like, Day was saying how these quarterbacks, they line up, they know their play, they see the coverage, and they can think back to a game or a time where they've had that same play against that same coverage, and what they saw in film and what they saw on the field and how that's going to work. And Julian Sayin's not going to have that, right? When he lines up against Texas, it'll be outside of what they've seen in practice and scrimmages. It'll be his first time lining up for that play against that coverage, most likely. Barring, it perfectly working out that one of his 20 whatever snaps last season was that exact play. Like, I don't imagine that's going to happen. He's going to see something for the first time. That might lead to an interception. That might lead to a bad play or a questionable play or a play where you're kind of grinding your teeth a little bit because you're wondering, like, what did he see there? Like, those moments will happen against Texas. They might happen against Ohio and Grambling too. Like, it's going to happen over the course of his career, especially his first few starts. But if he's trusted himself and has confidence in himself that, hey, let's see how the play unfolds here, like, that tells me that he has a natural ability at quarterback without any experience to make some of these passes, to trust his arm, to trust his reads, to trust his preparation. Like, if he is confident and trusting of himself, experience is only going to make him better. Now, if he's hesitant and he's overthinking, that's a tough trait to kind of get rid of, right? Because even over time, that could linger because more information can lead to more overthinking, right? Like, so if he's quick and he's moving and he's processing and things are just happening kind of on the fly, I don't care if there's a mistake or two, right? Like, maybe it's 2 picks, maybe it's 2 passes that are iffy, but they drop for incompletions. They could look very different on the stat sheet, but to me, it's just if he's going through with confidence and trust, he'll figure out the rest. That's all going to come with experience. By the time you get to December and he lines up against Texas for the second time, you're not going to feel a bit more confident because that 10-yard completion he threw to Jeremiah Smith with literally no knowledge of like going up against that coverage in this play before, it worked out for completion. Guess what? It's probably going to work out the second time because he's seen it and he can go through film and understand where maybe other guys were open, where other pockets were to pass the ball. If he's playing with kind of a natural smoothness and confidence, the rest will figure itself out. And I think you can see that when watching a guy, right? Like, we'll see this, like, if you watch football long enough, and I know like every Ohio State fan has, and especially the people who listen to Buckeye Talk routinely, like, you guys are dialed in Ohio State fans. You've seen it all. Like, you will watch Julian Sayin, you're going to know right away, like, oh, he's being hesitant. Yep. And then there's also going to be the side of like, oh, he's just ball snap, boom, he knows where to go with it. Like, that kind of stuff is so natural for some players that even without experience, you see signs of what he can turn into.
His mistakes are because he's never done it before, not because it's unfixable. Andrew, what do you want to, because the reason I started with the numbers, because you'll hear those numbers. I say, again, broken record, say this a lot. Numbers don't lie. They also don't tell the entire story. And 13 for 22, 294, 4 touchdowns and an interception on a piece of paper. Oh, he was airing it out. The vertical passing game was on point. That can be true, while also there were times where he was hesitant. He wasn't really much of a runner. And that yard per attempt is more about Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are better than everybody than it was CJ Stroud that day. The following week, I mean, he threw the ball 54 times. And again, this is not me saying he is the problem. He was not the problem. He is not why they lost. They lost because Joe Moorhead ran the same play 7 times in a row and Kerry Combs couldn't catch on to it. That's why they lost. The defense was not good. But he also plays a position where, fair or not fair, he gets blamed for losses, just like they get the glory for the wins. Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat, but we keep making it a quarterback stat. So he became the topic of conversation with all of this. And so that's how you get to a world where that's the second most yards at that point before CJ did what he did in the Rose Bowl that any Ohio State quarterback had ever thrown for. But they lost, and he threw a pick at the end of the game, so none of that mattered. Andrew, what do you want to see that's going to let you know that if you think Julian Sayin's ceiling is he is going to be a first-round draft pick in 2027, what do you want to see against Texas that lets you know that he is well on his way there?
I think it's a very similar answer to what Stefan said. So, I think I'm going to say it in a different way, though. Doesn't look overwhelmed, and the game does not move too quickly for him. There's a quote from the movie Glory Road, if you guys have ever seen that, where the coach says, great players make simple, easy plays. And you're right, Steven. Numbers don't necessarily lie, but they just fib. Like, they're not always 100% accurate.
They omit the truth sometimes.
You know, Julian Sayin throws 2 jet sweeps where he flips it forward to Carnell Tate and to Brandon Ennis and Jeremiah Smith, and they take it 80 yards for a touchdown. Well, there's 160 yards for Julian Sayin. Well, did really Julian Sayin do anything, or did he just take the snap, flip it to somebody, and then they ran 80 yards, and all of a sudden Julian gets credit? You know what I'm saying? There are ways to evaluate quarterback that we can use with our eyes, but it's the simple, easy stuff that I want to see, because the big stuff is going to present itself. And I think that's one of the things that I look at in young quarterbacks and see, okay, you want to get out there and throw it all over the yard, right? Like, you want to get out there and show off your arm and say, let's always take the big shot. And look, I get it. You've got Jeremiah Smith on one side, who's the best offensive player in the sport. And then you've got a first-round pick probably on the other side in Carnell Tate. And then you've got somebody else in the slot in Brandon Ennis, who, I mean, judging by history, might be a first-round pick too. Like, you've got all of these weapons. I get the idea of saying, let me just throw it up, Jeremiah down there somewhere. But those plays will present themselves. Those chances will present themselves. There will be a time to say, Ohio State just got a fumble. You're at midfield, 1st and 10. You're up 10-3, late second quarter. Now it's time to take it. Go deep to Jeremiah. That's going to show up for Julian at some point. But you know what else is going to show up a heck of a lot more than those, all right, now it's time to chuck the pigskin and hit him on a corner route where, he's double covered 40 yards on the field. When they blitz and all of a sudden there's a free rusher. I want to see Julian not panic in those situations. You want to see Julian, whenever there's a first read that's not there, okay, Jeremiah is double covered, and then he makes his progression, and he works, from down the field, and he says, if I have to throw it to James Peoples, and we get 4 on 1st and 10, if I have to throw it to Max Clare, and he steps out of bounds at a gain of 4 or 5 or even 3, okay, live to fight another down. That whole saying, you can't go broke taking a profit, that to me is really important for young quarterbacks to understand, because the big plays will present themselves. The ESPN top 10 Sports Center plays will show up for Julian in this offense. But can you handle yourself kind of on a down-to-down consistent basis when things start flying, and it might just be, let's live to fight another down. Let's throw it to the 4th row and not force something. Let's, hey, we got to check it down. That's fine. Hey, let me tuck it and run for 3, and then I'm going to slide down and not get killed. Those type of simple, basic, easy plays are very, very tough for young quarterbacks to master. But if he can show signs of that, I'm going to feel really, really good about what is possible, because we all agree that the upside is there with him as a quarterback. And we all agree the upside is there with this offense. So do that, and I'm feeling outstanding about where Julian is.
Coach Gillis and Coach Krajisnik over here saying the things Ryan Day wants to see. I want to see him be special. That's the thing about both of those games, the Oregon and the Minnesota game for CJ, is there were still moments when CJ was special. It's just they lost, and so you couldn't highlight them. But go back and watch. I challenge people to go back and watch that Oregon game. CJ was making some throws in that game that for a guy in his second start were very abnormal. So I want to see him be special. Not the whole game. I think overwhelmingly you both are right. Make the routine plays routinely. Do the simple stuff. Allow the weapons to be special for you. But I want to walk away from this game, and when I'm rewatching it, and Stefan, when we're rewatching it, we're going, yo, did you see that throw Julian had in the third quarter? Yo, remember that play in the middle of the second quarter when it's like 2nd and 6 and they drop back the pass and Julian climbs the pocket, steps to the right to evade a defensive tackle, and then layers a throw over the top, over the middle of the field. You know, remember in the middle of the fourth quarter, how quickly Julian Sayin diagnosed a blitz coming off the edge, quickly made the adjustment to pick it up, and then made a throw. And it was a simple 7-yard completion, but it's the fact that he picked that up in a way that you're not expecting a 19-year-old. I want to see that type of stuff, because that's the Kyle McCord did the simple stuff, but once it was time to be special, we never saw it. We kept putting it on, oh, his composure, he stays calm. That stuff's great, but you can stay calm and still lose to Michigan. You can also get hype, like Will Howard did, and still lose to Michigan. There's a lot of different ways to lose to Michigan, apparently. And all of them have to do with Connor Stallions. Not true, but still. I want to see him do some things in the game where we're going back and rewatching and go, oh, when that clicks, that's going to be something. I know Texas didn't have to deal with it for 16 minutes, but Washington might have to deal with it. Texas dealt with it for 15 minutes. Washington's dealing with it for 30 minutes, and now Penn State's got to deal with it for 60. That's what I want to see. That's the progression, because I do think Day wouldn't have named the starting quarterback today if he didn't think that some of the stuff you guys are talking about were not possible in week 1. That's not why he won the quarterback. He didn't just win the quarterback battle because he did all the simple things consistently. He won the quarterback battle because he's got a super, super high ceiling and started doing the simple things consistently. So that's what I want to see. I want to see the throw he has to Cornell Tate in the middle of the third quarter, or the throw he has to Brandon Ennis, or the throw he has to Max Clare in the back of the end zone, where it's like, that's not normal. Because everybody already thinks the quarterback on the other sideline is going to be doing that stuff. And I'm sure there are Texas people who want to see Arch do that stuff, because that's why we're talking about the number 1 quarterback in the 2023 class and the number 1 quarterback in the 2024 class, the way we're talking about them. That's why we're talking about, I mean, we're going to have stories and stuff talking about, are these two battling to be the number 1 pick in 2027 NFL draft? We're not having those conversations because they took the check down to James Peoples, or because Ryan Wingo took a bubble screen 60 yards down the field. No, we're talking about them that way because they finally mastered the stuff that the coaches want to see, the consistent thing, and now they can start making their way towards their ceiling. I put Julian Sayin in my Heisman Trophy finalist. You guys at least thought about putting Julian Sayin in your Heisman Trophy finalist. You don't get the Heisman Trophy finalist if you're just doing the simple stuff, unless you play for Oregon in a system that allows you to complete 80% of your passes.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, are we sure? Because like, oh yeah, Kyle McCord did the simple stuff, but this year's team, the 2025 team, has better weapons than the 2023 team did.
It also has
Jeremiah, I think you could argue, is better than Marv. Emeka, I mean, Carnell, is that how do you debate that? I mean, Brandon Ennis, I think we all think is going to be better than Julian Fleming was that season. Like we said on one of the videos that Max Clare might be a pass catching tight end. So I think you're going to see a lot of, Julian saying, like, if you get the ball to your playmakers, good things are going to happen. I think maybe a little bit easier than that year.
But I have not been hammering home for 9 months that this roster was like 2023. I've been saying it was like 2021, which is comparable to this roster. You do have 3 potential first-round draft picks at wide receiver. Now, Max Clare is better than Jeremy Ruckert, for sure. But you can also make the case that from a man-to-man basis, that offensive line is better than this offensive line. That offensive line had Paris Johnson, Nicholas Petit-Frere on it, and Luke Whippler, and Thayer Munford, and DeJuan Jones, a bunch of dudes who got drafted. We'll see what happens with this offensive line. It's younger, and it's maybe a little bit more suited because guys are playing the positions that actually fit their body type and not just 4 tackles and a center out there. But that was true with CJ. That, hey, if you just get the ball to Garrett, Chris, and Jackson and Travion Henderson, you don't have to do anything special. But that's not true when talent is equated. Talent was equated when they played Oregon. Talent was equated when they played Michigan. Talent is going to be equated on August 30th. Could Julian Sayin just be normal and Ohio State beat Washington and Minnesota? Probably. He probably can be normal and they can beat Illinois. Probably. He can definitely be normal when they beat Wisconsin. James Franklin is still coaching at Penn State, so he can be maybe a step higher than normal, but not all the way like elite, and then UCLA, Purdue, Rutgers is whatever. But Michigan, given the way that rivalry has played out, and Texas, to start the season and end the season, I don't think he can just be normal for 60 minutes and they win that game. He's just got to be special when the moment calls for him to be special, and that's what I'm talking about. When it's time for you to be special, do we leave this game thinking that you are the reason why Ohio State lost to Texas? We were wrong to say that about C.J. Stroud, but that's the way people felt in that moment. Is that if you made a list of the reasons why Ohio State lost to Oregon that year, C.J. Stroud was unfairly on that list. And I don't think we can get to a world where Julian Sayin is on the list of reasons for why Ohio State lost to Texas and still feel as confident about where his ceiling is, win or lose that game.
I'm excited to see his first game-winning drive or a situation like a 2-minute drill or something.
Yeah,
because that is when you get those answers, right?
Yeah.
Like when it's a 2-minute drill and it's a tie game against Texas. Like, I'm not saying that's going to make or break how good of a quarterback he is, but like that's gut check time. Like, I think it goes back to what I was saying too. Like, how much do you trust your preparation? How confident are you in yourself that when you got to make a throw over the middle of the field with 30 seconds to go to get your team into field goal range, like, can you do it?
And I'm kind of laughing because I think the first situation that I thought of was 2023, and that was the first time we saw Kyle McCord in one of those situations. He led one of the gutsiest drives I've seen here, where they went right down the field with like a minute left against Notre Dame, and they won the game. I think they completed like one or two fourth downs, and they had the 3rd and 19. Like, he had some throws on that drive. So I think you're right. I think the point stands.
Right. He also almost threw an interception that ruined that.
He also
drive.
did. He should have, that game should have been over before.
Right.
Before that game or before that play happened where they scored the touchdown, because the ball went right through whatever Notre Dame safety.
So that's the context we're talking about here. And Stefan, you are right. It's okay. He's cool on 1st and 10. He's cool on 2nd and 4. Okay, he's cool on 3rd and 1. Okay, it's 3rd and 7. Does Ryan Day trust you at a 2-minute drill? Right? You're talking to Andrew about Kyle McCord. Remember when they played Penn State in 2023 when Ryan Day decided to kneel it out with 3 timeouts?
Mm-hmm.
Does Julian Sayin put Ryan in a position where he feels like we can't be aggressive in this 2-minute drill? I don't think this. Those are the moments that you learn about your quarterback. In the moment, they'll even say that the moments where quarterbacks make their money, 3rd down, 2-minute drill. That's when they make their money. And so that's what I am excited to see the most from Julian Sayin, because he doesn't get to simulate it in a real game. His first game out the gate, there are consequences if he is not up to par in those moments. I believe he will be, but it's the intriguing thing, because we think Julian Sayin ceiling is number 1 pick in an NFL draft 2 years from now. Texas is a first look into the window of whether that is still the way we should be viewing at him as this continues to evolve over the time. And the good news is the guy on the other side of the field is also going through the same evaluation of everybody thinks you are going to be amazing. And now here's the first brick towards proving that to be correct or proving that to be wrong. That's quarterback talk from a Julian Sayin perspective. We're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to talk Lincoln Kienholz and any other position battles that are still out there to be won here on.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Right now, at the Home Depot, you'll find storage solutions made to fit your needs. Grab an HDX Tough Tilt to protect your tools. Or keep your sports equipment contained with reinforced snap-fit lids. Or stack up and make better use of your space with bins and totes built to last. Whatever your story, we've got the gear to keep it organized and protected at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide. Visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan, Krajisnik, and Andrew Gillis. Ohio State has named the starting quarterback, Julian Sayin, the former number one quarterback in the 2024 recruiting class. He was at Alabama for like a week and a half. He was there for bowl practice, which means he was one of the few players on Ohio State's roster. Actually, a lot of those guys have played in the Rose Bowl, so that's not true. He was the only player on Ohio State's quarterback room who had been in a Rose Bowl before, so that was not a new environment to him. Julian Sayin's the starter, Lincoln Kienholz the clear number 2, Tavian St. Clair the clear number 3. Tavian St. Clair conversation is, hey, work your butt off and in 2027 come win the job. Stefan, okay, let's you and I both think that it would be a good idea to explore Lincoln Kienholz in a role in the run game, given the athleticism he presents. Is that an every game thing? Is that a situational thing? How should they, ideally, how often should Ohio State be using that if we think it's something that they might explore in 2025?
I think it would probably be more matchup based, right? If there's a team where you feel like Lincoln's skills could pretty consistently get you a first down in a short yardage situation, I think you go with that. And that's not even like every short yardage situation, right? It's kind of almost like a vibe check, I guess. Like when it feels like the moment's right, like use it there. What I do like the idea of, though, one thing you mentioned when we did our videos at the Woody is it doesn't only have to be running.
Mm-hmm.
Like Lincoln Kienholz doesn't only have to be in the game when it's 4th and 1. You want a QB sneak or you want some kind of, option play to the outside or whatever the case may be. Like I'm interested in the idea of sprinkling in, 2 to 5 Lincoln Kienholz snaps in a game, every few games just to build some film and maybe you can catch a team, trying to cheat, but that's its whole.
We've all seen the news.
We've all seen the news, yeah. But like cheating in the sense of like, hey, Lincoln Kienholz is rolling out and everyone's selling out on him to run, and then boom, you hit a 10-yard pass that goes for 50 yards because nobody's covering Brandon Ennis or something or Max Clare or Bennett Christian or Will Kazmarek, whatever the case may be. Like I think Ohio State should kind of let its hair down with how they use Lincoln Kienholz and not be afraid to, get creative. I think Ryan Day and Brian Hartline both know how to draw up some fun plays. Or Billy Fessler was at Penn State and has seen probably some trick plays be run throughout the years in the Big Ten. Like you've got people who can kind of let their hair down and do cool things with Lincoln Kienholz, and I wouldn't shy away from that. I think at its core, you could use him in those 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 situations. We saw how successful the QB sneak was for Ohio State last year with Will Howard. I think Lincoln Kienholz can give you some element of that. So why overthink it on a 4th and 1 with Julian Sayin and shotgun as opposed to Lincoln Kienholz coming in and just punching it through the middle and giving you a new set of downs? Like I'm very in favor of finding ways to use Lincoln Kienholz from the most simplest of ways to the most creative of ways because he is such a, I don't want to say like a rare breed of athlete because you have a lot of, guys who played multiple sports in high school that play, collegiate football. So it's not like he's an anomaly, but like at quarterback, I don't think you have it all the time. So to find different ways to use him, I'm very open to the idea.
Andrew, Arch Manning played 1 snap in the Cotton Bowl, thanks to Lathan Ransom. Do we think we would have seen more of Arch Manning in that game, given how they used him in a short yardage situation where they were just going to run the quarterback? Do you think they would have used him more in that Cotton Bowl had he not got knocked out?
I can think of one specific instance.
At the end of the game where they were at the 1 yard line, that would have been the scenario of, all right, maybe throw him in there, and he's your extra option at the one when it's, 21-14 with 3 minutes left.
The reason I bring that up is I think that's what a potential role for Lincoln looks like this year. Now, Arch obviously threw some passes partially because he started some games this year, but I'm looking at their playoff run right now. He only played the one snap against Ohio State, thanks to Lathan Ransom, who again spent the entire season, especially the postseason, going, "Do you want to play football? Yes or no?" And every single time the player said, "Not after what you just did to me." He played 2 snaps against Georgia, 4 snaps against Clemson. In those snaps against Clemson, he ran it on 3 of those 4. Against Ohio State, he had the 1 8-yard run, and then against Georgia, in his 2 snaps, one of them ended in a run. Against Texas A&M, he also played 3 snaps, and he had 3 runs for 14 yards and a touchdown. Florida, he played a little bit more. I think Quinn Ewers got knocked out of that game. And then against Georgia, the first time around, he played 11 snaps. He threw 6 passes. He was 3 for 6, and he had 4 carries for -1 yards. Can Lincoln do that?
He can.
Is that worth? I don't know.
I think he can. I don't know if it's worth it. I think maybe as like we throw it out there fun special package at some point in the season, maybe. I don't know if that juice is worth the squeeze because, one of the things that Steven said was, well, you could throw him out there and you can still throw the ball. Okay. I don't necessarily jive with the idea of taking QB1 off the field and then saying, all right, now we're going to throw it, right? Like if, you get down, it's 1st and goal at the 10-yard line. I don't know if I agree with the idea of Julian got us here, but Lincoln offers us better running game. But don't worry, he could throw it anyway. Okay, like I'm not trying to be a jerk when I say this, but like if Lincoln can throw it and also run, why is Lincoln not the starting quarterback, right? Like I'm not trying to, just be as devil's advocate as I can. I am in favor of keeping Julian on the field because I don't know if Lincoln is like such a different weapon that it matters, right? Like I don't think, you're subbing Cam Newton into the game, right? Like if I'm trying to think of like a better example. Like if you had like somebody like a, Jalen Milroe type of athlete on your depth chart and you weren't really sure of him as a passer, but maybe he could do something. Okay, then I think it's more of a conversation because Milroe could scoot and Milroe could really run. But I don't necessarily think with a young quarterback who is in his first season as a starter, like, I don't know if you want to mess with that because, let's just play out a hypothetical. Ohio State gets down to the 10-yard line, second quarter, a 3-3 game against Texas. You put Lincoln out there for a snap or 2. And I'm not even saying it goes wrong. I'm not even saying it whatever. It's just you gain a yard on a quarterback power and then he throws an incomplete pass because you tried like one of those like rollout plays and he just throws it over McClure's head because he had to or because it was a misfire. Okay, well now Julian was just sitting on the bench for 2 plays and in comes Julian on 3rd and 7. Like I don't know if that is the best way to operate in terms of like a yo-yo situation with your quarterback. Typically, I'm not in favor of that, speaking generally. So I would keep Julian on the field as much as possible. He is QB1. I mean, keep him out there.
Andrew hates all fun.
Andrew hates the idea of Ohio State playing more than 22 players.
He does. He loves Jim Knowles.
Your best players on the field.
What if you're a roster that has 5-star talent everywhere?
Yeah. You can't recruit players of this caliber and then like have them sitting on the bench, Jim Knowles. You gotta play them.
One thing I will say though
he would have Kenyatta Jackson, Edric Houston, Bo Atkinson, and Caden McDonald are going to play all 75 snaps next week if Andrew Gillis was the coordinator.
I would maybe agree with that, but we'll get there when we get there. What I will say though is I do think a large part of this conversation depends on one thing we don't really have an answer to yet with Julian Sayin. And that is, what does the mobility look like, right? Like, can he be closer to C.J. Stroud than to Kyle McCord in terms of mobility, right? Like, I don't think any of us are expecting him to be Justin Fields or Jalen Milroe or Lamar Jackson, but can he be better than what Kyle McCord was in terms of, extending plays and being mobile? Because if you can trust Julian to do a QB sneak, like 6'1", 210 isn't very inviting, but like, if he's got enough mobility to give you a 3rd-and-1 scramble or a 3rd-and-1 run to give you a first down, then you don't necessarily have to like design a ton of stuff for Lincoln. So that's maybe kind of the biggest question to answer that. Like we have a story on cleveland.com. I talked to Julian Sayin's high school coach, and he talked about like a sneaky athleticism that Julian like does have. So if that's something that's in the back pocket, then having Lincoln in certain packages isn't as important anymore. But I don't know exactly what that looks like with Julian, as opposed to like I'm pretty confident in it with Lincoln. So I'd at least have the option.
Which is ironic because people didn't think CJ could run, and then he played Georgia. And now if you watch a Houston Texans football game, it feels like he's scrambling right and making a throw every 7 throws.
Well,
I think that
he's also having to scramble. At least last year with the Texans, had to scramble all the time.
Listen, I never said it was his fault why he was doing it. Okay, why he's doing it isn't the point. The point is
what you're saying is don't trade your starting left tackle when you have a franchise quarterback,
especially not one that you paid within that last 6 years to be your franchise left tackle. But hey, man, listen, I don't run an NFL team. I think I'd like to see it. I think it's worth exploring it. I think it's worth doing it, even if it means taking Julian Sayin off the field 4 times a game. I think it'll be okay. Okay. Austin Serveld officially the left tackle. So let's update our market down situation. I have it up in front of me because we are all officially wrong now. What we marked down is not going to come to pass because we all decided one thing, and that's not what's actually going to happen at this point. Who takes the first snap at right tackle against Texas? Ethan Nyawa or Philip Daniels? Stefan, you first.
Philip Daniels.
Andrew.
I think it's Daniels too.
Does Ethan Nyawa, because they talked about essentially they're going to rotate it, and that's probably what they're going to do, which I think is a lot more difficult at tackle than it is guard. Because guard, at least you're in there, right? You're working with somebody. Tackle, you can be on an island sometimes. Ethan Nyawa takes his first snap against Texas where? Guard or tackle?
Right guard. I'll say Ethan Nyawa takes his only snaps against Texas at right guard.
That's an interesting. I'm going to say tackle. I think they work him in at tackle.
I think he plays both. I think the first snap is at guard. I got to see Tegra show me he can handle 75 snaps. Because I do think you have a point, Stefan, that you've been making for a couple of weeks about the idea that maybe part of the reason why they like to rotate is Tegra, if you can play him 35 to 40 snaps instead of 65 plus, you get the best of a guy who's not a small human being, by the way. That's part of this. That is a very large human being trying to play guard. People who are Tegra Shabola's size typically play tackle. But granted, you can say the same thing about Ethan Nyawa. So maybe if you have 2 Tegras, you have 1 Tegra.
And Ryan Day kind of said that on Monday. Yeah. Like he reiterated the value of rotating. And I don't know, not to say that I've told you so, but I told you so.
Everybody's all for rotating except for Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew's like, if you're not a starter, then you'll bench warm. So we have 105 players, but only 20 of you are going to play.
Look, I'm all for rotating on the defensive line.
Why? Okay, so can we explore that? You are all for rotating on the defensive line,
yes,
so they can stay fresh. But
yes,
your offensive, the guys who have to keep the guys who are coming at them full speed.
Mm-hmm.
They have to play the entire game and be dead tired by the 4th quarter.
Yeah, suck it up.
And they're big and slower.
Yeah, suck it up. I think I value the offensive line is the most chemistry-driven spot on a football field, right? Like
I don't know. I would say the long snapper and the guy who holds the field goal.
I don't know if that's chemistry so much as the guy waiting for the snap taps the ground and then the ball comes.
You say you say that until it's a wild snap, and then all of a sudden.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, right. Fans, if you don't know who Ohio State's long snapper is or holder is, as you're listening to this podcast, hey, look, I hope you never figure it out, because if you do, it probably means something bad happened. But no, I think with the offensive line, it is much more important to have chemistry and have 5, like it's a cliche and I hate to say it, but like 5 working with one set of eyes, like that's really true. Like I value that more than Tegra Shabola got 4 series off in a 11 series game, right? Like I value that more than anything else. And like, everybody sees the value of rotating. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, rotating's great. Isn't it awesome? Like, hip hip hooray. We can keep our guys fresh. Everybody can kick their feet up and have orange slices on the sideline, and they can take a breath and they can watch what's going on, and they can Hey, look at this. Look at this is why we did this. Yeah, if Tegra Shabola was an All-American right guard, nobody cared. You would be laughed out of the room.
But he's not.
Yeah,
No, but here's what I'm saying. But here's what I'm saying. Ideally, you wouldn't want to do it, so I get it.
Ideally,
and
you would want to
I
have the best
understand.
possible player at every position. You would want, yes, you would want a Paris Johnson, a Quentin Nelson, and a Corey Stringer and an Orlando Pace.
Yes,
You don't
in
have
an
that,
ideal world, you don't want to have to rotate, and I understand what you guys are saying. Where, oh well, you're not in an ideal world, so you have to rotate. I don't know. I would much rather have Tegra Shabola play next to Carson Hinsman and Philip Daniels for 65 snaps and figure it out and understand this is what I can expect, rather than kind of working back and forth where it's all right, now one series it's Shabola and Daniels, and the next series it's Nyanwa and Daniels, and the next series it's Shabola and Nyanwa. I would not rotate on the offensive line unless you have to, because you put Daniels out there at right tackle and it's clear that he can't hack it or something like that. I'm keeping my starting 5 on the field until they prove to me that they are not the best 5.
So what if they just spent 9 months between 15 spring practices and about 30 practices in fall camp leading up to the first game, showing you that you probably shouldn't leave us out there for 65 straight snaps?
That's a Mick Marotti question. Why can't you play 65 snaps? Like, you have guys on your team that have played 65 snaps before. Like, you have guys that can do it. Like,
right, they do. They're saying that they don't have 5 guys.
That they're not one of your best 5 players if they're going to collapse after 30 snaps. Like, if they play 35 to 40, they're not one of your best 5. Like, if their play is just going to disintegrate.
I have one counter to this.
They want a natty doing this exact thing.
You are. I will give Gillis credit. He's fighting a fight on, like, this is the one beat in the country where, like, it's impossible to, like, have most people on your side, because this same team that you just covered did that and won a national championship.
Yeah, if I say Tavian St. Clair can't be this team's quarterback and they're because they can't win anything, there's gonna be people who are like, you moron, I watched this a decade ago where the third string quarterback won the national championship.
But we're also having a nuanced conversation about a situation where they went out and got 2 guys in the portal because they had to go get 2 guys out in the portal. And then the best possible scenario happened where they got 2 guys in the portal, but the guys who were already in the building took significant jumps over the last 9 months. Luke Montgomery, this is not a conversation of should anybody rotate with Luke Montgomery. In fact, I think Ryan Day even got asked that. He didn't necessarily go in that direction. The way Ryan Day talked about this and the way that Tyler Bowen talked about this when we talked to the offensive line last week, left side to center, there is not a conversation happening. And really, it doesn't even sound like there's a significant conversation happening with Tegra Shabola not being the starting guard. What has happened here is this has gone from Austin Saraveld's the right tackle, Ethan Nyawa's the left tackle, and Philip Daniels is going to be a potential starter in 2026, to Austin Saraveld has had one of the greatest off seasons any offensive lineman has ever had at Ohio State in the modern day era. And all of a sudden, he's gone from, hey, he's going to be their starting right guard, to he's going to be their starting right tackle, to he is now possibly their best offensive lineman. He's their starting left tackle, which has left them in a world where they are trying to decide between 2 guys they spent money on in the portal back in December, which one is going to start. I don't know. Maybe both of them are good enough to play. And the reason why we're having this conversation is because on the other shoe at wide receiver, where we have had so many glowing conversations about how deep this room is and how many guys they can play with, it doesn't sound like Mylan Graham and Bryson Rogers are going to be playing any snaps against Texas. Now, granted, are the next couple of weeks we going to see JJ Carnell and Brandon play significantly less because they're playing Grambling State and Ohio? Yes. But it does not sound like there is going to be any rotation at wide receiver. You know, the pride and joy of the roster, the room with a bunch of 5-star recruits in it who are all going to be first-round draft picks one day. Ryan Hartline did not sound like he's rotating that room. The rooms that sounded like they were going to see healthy rotations, based on the way Ryan Day, Matt Patricia, and Brian Hartline talked, Ryan Day said they had 4 linebackers, which to me, I think it's probably Garrett Stover over Riley Pettijohn for this first game, or probably Riley Pettijohn has a role on special teams. But Riley, I think, is doing a lot of good things to put himself in a position where if they have like a 4 linebacker look against Penn State, maybe we see him a little bit more. But you probably go with the older guy because it's Texas. He said 3 safeties, Caleb Downs, Malik Hartford, and Jalen McClain. So if they share that job, that's not going to be shocking to me. And I don't think he got asked about corners, but we're also going to talk to Tim Walton here.
Running back, he said 3 guys.
He said 3, and Carlos Loughlin keeps looking at us like we're crazy if we don't acknowledge that he has 6 running backs in the room.
It seems like he's looking at Ryan Day like he's crazy if he doesn't think he has 6 running backs in the room.
He keeps telling us Bo Jackson's going to play real football, and Ryan Day keeps going, well, let the freshman figure it out. And Carlos Loughlin's like, no, unacceptable. You figure it out now, you play against Texas. So it can't be a negative for offensive line to say, hey, we have 6 or 7 guys. We might want to rotate one of these spots, while it's a positive at all these other spots. But then we completely ignore Brian Hartline telling us, do not expect JJ, Carnell, and Brandon Ennis to come off the field unless it's a 12 personnel.
Yep. I will say, too, on the offensive line front, like, Gillis, I think one thing that you said that I guess I disagree with was, like, you like the idea of Tegra, like, building his chemistry with Carson Hinsman to his left and Philip Daniels, who we're assuming is going to be the right tackle, like, to his right. Before the injuries happened, the rotation was with Tegra when him and Austin were rotating early in the season, where it was Seth. Like, the injuries were not on the right side of the line until Indiana week. The rotation started when the injuries were happening on the left side of the line, with Donovan Jackson missing a couple games, and then Josh Simmons going down, and then Zen Mahalski going down. Like, I think the rotation was certainly elevated in the playoff. They were doing it with Tegra and Austin Saravel early in the year when it was Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, and Seth McLaughlin from left to center. So they had last year, Seth is to my left and Josh Fryer's to my right. And for most of the season, that was the case, and they were still rotating Tegra Shabola specifically. So that's why I still point at right guard. I'm like, when everyone was healthy, they were rotating Tegra Shabola last year. It wasn't just an injury thing. So I don't know. One more thing I'll say too on the safety front with Ryan Day talking about 3 safeties, like, we can mark down. We did mark down our starters and things like that on defense, and we can say you're right or wrong whether on who gets the first snap against Texas. I think I'm kind of past like caring who the starter is, because it sounds like we're going to see both of them a lot, and it sounds like we're going to see both of them on the field together a lot.
Yeah,
the Caleb Downs like nickel stuff, like it's here, like that. Yep. That is going to happen a lot. So I don't really care who takes the first snap between Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain, and maybe that just depends on like who they feel fits better next to Caleb, when Caleb is kind of in that safety role. But if Caleb's moving around a ton, like I don't particularly care which one of them is a starter.
I think everything they do with Caleb Downs is going to be matchup based. And I think that is the one thing, not the one thing. It's one of the things that is already, and we haven't seen them play football yet, but is separating Matt Patricia in terms of how this defense might be different than it was under Jim Knowles is. And it's why we're teasing Andrew a little bit about the not playing anybody else thing. Jim Knowles didn't play other guys, right? There were no sub packages. It was, these are the 11 guys and they're going to play. And it wasn't until things happened that we saw Jermaine Matthews start to rotate in there, that we start to see with Cody Simon in 2023 playing more. Like, he kept saying it, but he didn't play Cody Simon more unless it was a match what the offense was doing in terms of 12 personnel. It didn't always dictate. He allowed what the other team was doing to dictate who was on the field in terms of personnel. And it sounds like the way Matt Patricia keeps talking, there's like a million packages. There's the package where Caleb Downs is the big nickel. Is that their base package this year, where instead of starting Lorenzo Styles or Bryce West, you start Caleb Downs there and you play Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain back there? It's a 3-safety look. Or do you go traditional nickel where it's Caleb Downs, and I would say Jalen McClain probably starts if it's one or the other right now, the way things are sounding. And Lorenzo Styles is out there as your nickel. Do we see 3 down looks? Do we see 3 linebacker looks where it's Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, and Peyton Pierce? I'm starting so much more with Jim Knowles, because being a starter with Jim Knowles on defense meant you were playing 55 plus snaps a game. I do not think that is true anymore. I think Arvell Reese is not coming off the field. I think Sonny Styles is not coming off the field. I think Caleb Downs is not coming off the field. And against Texas, I don't think Davison and Jermaine are coming off the field much. And if they do, it's a sprinkle of Aaron Scott, because then you can spend the next 2 weeks really ramping up Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez and getting them some in-game looks that are not as consequential. But I think against Texas, outside of the guys I named, I think we're going to see a lot of different people playing football against Texas. And it's not going to look like how it looked against Minnesota in 2021, where it's because they don't know who their best players are. It's because, no, we have like 30 people on defense who can play depending on what the scenario is.
Yeah, I think defensively, I think it's very much matchup based, right? Like, I think you have a lot of different answers for a lot of different things. Like, okay, 3rd and 11, this is our best, this is our best dime look, okay, first and 10, this is our best look. Okay, they're inside the red zone, this is our best look. Like, I think that there's a lot more, options there, and there's a lot more versatility there, which is, I guess, different, to wrap up the O-line thing. It's like, I think I asked this last time. It's like, it's a like a big picture, hypothetical, theoretical question. Like, what's the difference between a rotation and a quick hook, right? Like, if you say, hey, we're going to rotate at right tackle between Daniels and Enyanwa, and the first series, Colin Simmons gets absolutely locked up by Phillip Daniels, are you still sticking with that rotation, or do you want to keep Daniels out there? And if he keeps doing that, it's like, all right, what's the difference between that and Daniels has a rough 2 series against Colin Simmons or Ethan Burke, and then it's like, you know what, time to get him off the field. Let's get Enyanwa. Is that a quick hook or is that a rotation? I don't know. I think it depends, but I think defensively, it is much more when Texas does X or we are in situation X, here is our answer, here is our response. I think you can definitely play a little bit more chess pieces defensively.
Anything else of note that we want to talk about? We talked today and the 2 coordinators.
No, I think
a lot of quarterback questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there was like the first question, like Matt Patricia, Ohio State's defensive coordinator, stepped to the podium, and the first question he got asked was about Julian. Like, that's just to peel back the curtain of people who might not have watched, like that was what it was today. It was a let's have a quarterback conversation fiesta.
I was reminded that by Matt Patricia that Arch Manning is the fastest of the Manning quarterbacks. So that he's faster than Peyton and Eli. I think we knew that.
The low ball.
We also were reminded and maybe kind of like realized for the first time that Brian Hartline went against Matt Patricia defenses while he was a receiver with the Dolphins. We forget that the Dolphins are in that division and that there was like a 30-year period where the Patriots just beat them every time. But yeah, a lot of quarterback talk.
And now it's just kind of over.
What was your favorite part of the quarterback competition, Stephen?
How will you remember the 2025 Ohio State quarterback competition? We need to play I Will Remember You by Sarah McLachlan, I think is whoever sings.
Well, this is where
the background.
This is where Lincoln starts his Joe Burrow career path, right? It was compared to the Haskins.
Well, he'd be down there already. I think my favorite part of the quarterback battle was, but not just making the quarterbacks live. He did it for multiple days. There were like 2 practices that week. He made one of the live practice days when we were in there to watch the quarterbacks. And I just know the anxiety was on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, imagine if I made my quarterbacks live and I let the entire general public plus the media in here to watch it.
I'm pretty sure either you or I, Stephen, wrote for cleveland.com like how great of an idea that was. That story could have been so different.
It could have been freezing cold takes immediately.
It's one of those things that's always a great idea in theory, but the entire time you're executing it, you're just like, please, 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 please. I think, we all watch Hard Knocks. You remember when the Browns were on there and their coaching staff was just like, stay off the quarterback, stay off the quarterback. Mm-hmm. I can promise you that team meeting before those 2 practices was, listen, they are live, but I promise you, you will be gone.
Your scholarship will be revoked by the end of the day.
They are live this is not a real football game. Do not mess up my vibe over the next 2 pack right. But I loved it. I loved what he was able to learn from that. And so that's why, and also I think those 2 practices, kind of leveled the playing field for Lincoln in a world where that's where he's best at. Tavian was always going to be live. Like, him and Eli are probably, Brick Handler is going to be the scout quarterback now, but I'm assuming that there have been other practices that Tavian has also been live because he's the 3rd string quarterback. But now that they're in season, they can't do that. 2 quarterbacks who are behind the starter have to stay healthy for everything. Yeah. But the way that leveled the playing field for Lincoln and allowed us to really see what this offense could look like with him at the helm is probably part of the reason why the conversation around him has drastically changed over the last couple of months here. And it's felt like maybe the coaching staff genuinely felt Lincoln had a chance to win this battle. Even if we never quite got there, we could at least start to wrap our minds around the idea of what if he ended up being Ohio State's starting quarterback? Okay, what would that look like? And I do think there is optimism around what that idea is. And I think that was made possible by Ryan Day making the quarterbacks live.
My favorite part of it was the thought of this might be the last time we have to do this tango for a little while. Because I showed up here in like the first week of August 2023, and literally that month was just basically Kyle McCord, Devin Brown. And then at the end of the year, you have Will Howard, and you go to spring practice, and it's Will Howard versus Devin Brown, and like it's easy to forget that we were talking about it because it happened. Not that we necessarily believed it, but it was Devin's getting the first team reps, and there's not a ton of separation, and Devin kind of looks better right now than Will. And then we got to the spring game, and as spring went on, it was like, all right, Will did this, and Will was the guy.
Yeah.
But it was still, you have this brand new quarterback. And then now this year we had this whole Lincoln Julian thing. If Julian plays well, I said this in one of our videos as well, this is not Ohio State naming its quarterback for 25. This is Ohio State naming its starting quarterback for 2026. Like, if Julian plays well this year, there's not going to be a debate going into the spring. Oh, who's your leader? Like, it's like, no, this dude threw for 4,000 yards and 38 touchdowns and 6 picks. He's our starting quarterback going into 26. And like, just that uncertainty for Ohio State and whatever kind of questions you might have, those might not exist.
Yeah, but some of that's fake uncertainty. Well, they brought Will Howard as a transfer quarterback with 1 year left on eligibility. Devin Brown was better than him early on in the spring because he's been in the offense for 3 years.
Yeah, because Will Howard needed to acclimate, right?
That's not.
Yeah, I'm not saying
that
it was a real quarterback competition.
There have been, since I've been on the beat, essentially, which has been Ryan Day's entire tenure as the head coach, there have been 2 legitimate, this guy might do some things that can win him the battle. One of them was a genuine battle out of weakness, and the other one was out of strength. 2023 was a battle because neither one of them was claiming the job. 2025 was a battle because Julian has got NFL arm talent, and Lincoln Kienholz, from a culture standpoint, was doing everything right to best position himself, even if it was eventually not going to be enough. CJ Stroud was never in a real battle with Kyle McCord, and Will Howard was never in a real battle with Devin Brown. But also, quarterback battle is good business. What are we going to be watching next spring? The defense is young, so they'll all be back. What are we going to be watching? Who's going to replace Carnell Tate as Z receiver? That's fun. No, this is stressful, but it's also more fun. All right, Julian Sayin, Ohio State starting quarterback in 2025. Andrew, I know you're saying it's for 2025 and 2026, but college football is weird. And you know who else said that last year? Tennessee said that. So Julian Sayin is Ohio State starting quarterback to start the Texas game. I don't know.
Anybody related to Julian Sayin in this camp and his family, whatever, please just don't put us through the Nico. I don't want to have to deal with that.
I mean, listen, we live in a world where there are kids signing with schools showing up as early enrollees in January, and then they're in the transfer portal by the end of March. So like, I'm not projecting anything outside of 12 days from now, Julian Sayin is going to take the field as Ohio State starting quarterback against Texas. Whatever happens after that, that's future Steven's problem, future Buckeye Talk problems. In the meantime, get the text, 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. As you're listening to this, we're back in the Woody. I think tomorrow is defensive back day? Yeah, defensive back day. We're talking with the cornerbacks and safeties. We'll also talk with the tight ends later on this week. We are a week away from game week as Ohio State continues to prepare to play Texas to open up the 2025 regular season. For Andrew Gillis and Stefan Krajisnik, I'm Stephen Means, and that was Buckeye Talk.